All right, g'day guys. Welcome back to Statchat Sports. Yeah, here with Steve and Tazza. This is the weekly football podcast on the channel. Tazza, I feel like we've got a bit to talk about today over the week. So let's jump straight into it. And I want to start off just quickly by some news that broke. This is slightly older news now, but probably late last week. News out of Turin about Juventus and some issues going on over there in terms of some dodgy shit. Being docked to 15 points in the Serie A. Some pretty serious. They're not necessarily allegations, because I think this is pretty much all confirmed to be sort of true.
It's proven.
Yeah, it's all proven, and it doesn't look great on their behalf. Basically, just a quick little rundown in case anyone doesn't know. They've basically been caught slipping transfers sort of under the radar and sort of inflating their prices and stuff like that, to sort of, even out their books or something along those lines. Just doing dodgy stuff in terms of transfers and their money and stuff. They're on the public. Juventus are on the stock exchange, so they have to give annual reports every year and stuff like that. And over the course of 3 years, from 2019 to 21, they found some dodgy stuff happening over there. And basically because of that, they've been docked of 15 points in Serie A, taking them from, at the time they were third, down to about 10th. It's not a good look for Juventus.
You'd think Juventus have got form in this, and that's the thing that's most shocking. Is it wasn't? This was false reporting essentially for their financial figures. But they've got form in match fixing. Go back to 2006. They've got the Calciopoli. Essentially, they were relegated to Serie B. It was all over for them, and it almost just completely fell apart overnight. So you'd think a team like this would have learnt from that experience. But look, we find ourselves, 16 years down the track? 17. And it's all happening again. Not quite to the same extent, but nevertheless, it's terrible. It's crap. It's something that I don't follow Italian football super closely, but it's something that just never seems to. It's always lingering in Italian football. Is the dodginess of it? It's the match fixing, the tampering. It's something that they need to shake.
Yeah, I don't know how. Now, obviously the big sort of points of that, and that you pointed out, the match fixing of Juventus were at the heart of it. They weren't the only team involved in that, but they were the team that got hit the hardest with the worst punishment. So, based off of that, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but it seemed like if they were to, logic would say if they were hit with the hardest punishment, then they were pretty much at the forefront of that. And that almost just like destroyed them as a club. They only by the goodness of certain players sticking around and helping them get back into the Serie A, where a lot of them left and moved on. Like you said, this not quite as bad. They're not about to be relegated, but yeah, we've seen a massive fall from grace for Juventus probably in the last, what would you say, 3-4 years, maybe
3 years. Yeah.
Yep. And this isn't going to help. This, I assume they're about halfway through their season too, but this could damage Champions League, for them, which could result in players leaving and not being able to bring in the quality to replace it. So yeah, it hurts them in more than just positions on the table. It goes deeper than that. And I know obviously Pavel Nedved, who's a Juve legend. I believe he's like I don't know exactly his position, but he's pretty high up in Juventus. Obviously, he's at the forefront. He's under the investigation, and one of the other blokes at the time, I forget his name, but he's now part of Tottenham's camp. I believe he's been banned from football for 2.5 years as well.
The Paratici, I think.
Yeah, that rings a bell. So he's been done for 2.5 years. So I think he's like the sporting director or something like that at Tottenham, potentially, if any Tottenham fans know and can confirm that. But, so that not only that sort of rolls onto Tottenham as well. They're sort of a little bit, collateral damage by this as well, because of the position of this bloke.
Yeah, I mean, and never being part of the squad back in 2006 is just all the more striking as well. I mean, he was at the forefront of it back then and is now. So it just adds another layer to just how silly it all is. But I mean, I don't think we'll see the mass exodus. Obviously, this time there may be some vultures circling. Guys, young talents like Federico Chiesa. Maybe he forces his way out if there's no Champions League. I know teams have been looking at him as sort of a promising piece, but yeah, I mean, it's not gonna. We're not going to see the same damage that happened, but nevertheless, it's not a good look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a bit of dark news out of Italy over there. So yeah, not fantastic. If there are anyone that follows Italian football, or specifically Juventus, and is listening, that knows a little bit more about this, let us know, because it is it's an interesting read. So let us know if we've sort of got anything wrong. Speaking about what we've spoken about here, but greener pastures. I just want to touch on Mikhailo Mudrik's debut for Chelsea at the weekend, because we sort of we highlighted this as a potential, not a flop, but just a question mark over, the price tag that he comes with and all this sort of stuff. But I think it was about 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes he got at Anfield against Chelsea. He seemed to show what he's capable of. Did you see enough of him to, for Chelsea fans to get excited about him?
I mean, he was probably the only exciting thing in the game. Up until that point, it was an absolute drab affair. It was terrible. But I mean, it resulted in Milner being hooked off. I mean, Milner couldn't cope. It was booked. Couldn't cope. Get Trent on just to match him for pace. Really, he was being turned inside out by Mudryk. So I mean, obviously there was no goals, but the intangibles were definitely there. He was definitely a presence on the ball. He looked to make things happen and just about did. So, I mean, I would be encouraged if I was a Chelsea supporter. I would definitely be encouraged. Both sides we're pretty half-assed. Let's be honest, for most of that game. So, the inspiration that he provided was much needed, and hopefully, for Chelsea fans' sake, he can keep it going.
Yeah, I suppose we'll have to maybe wait and see, how many more games he'll get off the bench potentially to sort of bring him up to speed with, the way that Potter wants to play and how he's going to fit him into that system and stuff like that. But yeah, he showed some glimpses of brilliance. Like, he had that run that he took on I think he took on James Milner and probably a midfielder or two, and just put it into the side netting. But if he scores that's something that we're talking about for weeks. Suddenly this $100 million guy is, worth it after a 10-minute cameo and a goal like that. So, yeah, it's definitely a watch this space, but it looks pretty good for him at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. On the topic of Chelsea and ex-Chelsea managers, we did see news this week or on the weekend that Frank Lampard has now been relieved of his duties at Everton. Not the happiest of records there. So 38 games in the league, and all he managed was a paltry 35 points, which, going back over the PL tables to 2014-15, would either have finished 17th or gotten relegated. So, I mean, and for most of those years, if you weren't getting relegated, you were 1 point above. I think 18th was generally about 34 points. So he would have survived by the skin of his teeth if it was going back those years. But I mean, 15 points at the halfway mark, nowhere near good enough for this Everton team. And I mean, we've said it a lot that this Everton team is better than than a relegation team. There should be enough there to sort of at least get them over the line. But clearly, Lampard just wasn't the man for the job.
Yeah, I think so. Look, it's well documented on this channel. But our thoughts of Everton and stuff. We spoke about it plenty of times last year when they were in the same position, and we didn't expect them to be in this position again. But here we are, halfway through the season. 15 points, like you said. Even if they get another 15, history tells us that that's nowhere near enough to keep them out the relegation. And obviously, I believe I've mentioned it on here before, but my dad's an Everton supporter, and I was actually speaking to him about it on the weekend, and he's not overly confident that they'll stay up either. For that reason, exactly. Looking back at the 20 games that they've played and who they've beaten and who they've lost to, they've lost to Southampton, they lost to West Ham at the weekend, who were in that relegation battle, same points as them at that point. So they're losing to the teams around them as well. Whereas obviously their teams in relegation battles, they're the games you need to be picking up points in, because that's the likelihood. The likelihood is they're the teams you're going to beat. So yeah, it's not good for him. I think at the moment I've heard that it looks like Bielsa is top target for him, which is a great move. I think that's something that they definitely need. He's the mark that he made on Leeds. We're sort of still seeing shades of that at the moment in the Leeds squad, even under Jesse Marsch. So, what you're going to get with him in the Everton side. You're going to get energy. You're going to add some excitement, I suppose, to it. So, you're probably going to see some more risks being coming in, which for a team in relegation zone, potential question marks there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of you tend to go back to your basics with when you take on a new manager, sort of in that position. But maybe that's what Everton need, just a change of plan and a change of atmosphere, I suppose. It's probably a pretty downbeat atmosphere, and if Bielsa can get them playing more of an attacking style and enjoying their football a bit more, then maybe it'll work.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the reason. That's what we spoke about last year with Leeds. That's almost the reason that it seemed that Bielsa lost his job, was because Leeds were in not the same position but a similar position, and almost the rebuttal to change the play style to suit a team in that relegation battle, rather than being attacking and taking risks and being caught out, to play safe and stuff like that. That's just not his style. So Leeds took the decision to move him on because they felt like he couldn't save him. So yeah, it's as much as it would be I still think it would be a good appointment for Everton. It still does sort of leave that potential question mark, I feel, over him. But yeah, look, Lampard has struggled now in two sides. He's managed in the Premier League, and I mean the Chelsea job was always way too big for him anyway, I thought.
Yeah.
And he didn't do the business at Everton either. It was a tough job to go into, to be fair to him. I think there's issues that stem there way beyond his control in terms of the ownership and stuff like that. But yeah, look, if you're not getting the results at this level, you don't tend to hold on to a job very quickly. So I'm not surprised that he's gone now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of other names. Say Sean Dyche is sort of amongst the top names.
Yeah.
Would be a good appointment. I think he'd be the kind of guy to settle it down a little bit and probably get them on sort of a bit safer terms. David Moyes is a weird one. Already in a job, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. And Nuno Espirito, obviously the old Wolves manager, and yeah, I mean, I think he'd be a decent appointment. See Wayne Rooney's name up there, I think it would be romantic, but I don't think it's the right choice.
No, I think at this point, if you're Everton, you need to go for experience in these areas. So
Sean Dyche,
Sean Dyche is actually a really good shout. I mean, he spent like 4 or 5 years of his Burnley career at the bottom. I mean, he kept him out every time, obviously besides the most recent one. But Yeah, so he actually seems like, more so the perfect candidate at this point.
He did that on a proper shoestring budget too. So I mean, given a little bit of cash, or more, he got nothing at Burnley. So given what he could possibly get at Everton, I think he could do a better job, and I think that'd be safe with him.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't actually think you were gonna go this angle when you mentioned former Chelsea managers. I thought you were going Conte direction. Did you see Conte?
I didn't know.
It doesn't look like he's gonna stay at the end of the year at Tottenham either. I think he's going to be pretty much asking to terminate his contract, or I don't know if his contract's actually up at the end of the year or not. But his contract's either up, and even Spurs aren't interested in or not going to renew it, or he's basically going to ask to terminate and move on. I think he wants to go back to Italy, from what I've read. But another one where I just sort of think the fairy tale and that was sort of planned out between Conte and Tottenham hasn't really come to fruition.
Yeah, that's it's been topsy turvy, that one. There's been times where it's looked like it's all coming together. Obviously, the much vaunted front three, obviously, with Son, Harry Kane, and I mean, you could include a bunch of guys in there. You could say Murray, you could say they thought Richarlison might have been part of it, but I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's an odd one, and I mean, he's never been properly settled. I think he's never, like I said, topsy turvy. It's just so lurched from one extreme to another with Conte at Spurs. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I think there's probably a few managers out there who would probably get a lot more out of that team. It's not a bad team. It's not, to me, it's not a raging top 4 team, but it's a good manager could get plenty out of that. And Conte has a decent record, but he just clearly isn't getting it out of this team.
Yeah, I can't see it being put down to performances at all, because they are fifth, and playing okay football, we'll say. I mean, they're losing the big games. They lost both North London derbies. They were 2-0 up against City away, and then ended up losing 4-2. So that one would have stung. But so I can't see it being put down. The decisions being put down to results or anything like that. It just, I think it just purely comes down to not being a match. And if the conversation's already been had between, the owners and the higher ups of the club and Conte, they obviously seem to agree, because, otherwise they'd be, Tottenham would be doing whatever they can to try and convince him to stay, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. He doesn't get given much, to be fair, in terms of budget for transfers and stuff like that. And I mean, that's nothing new with Tottenham. We've seen that for years as well. But some managers work better under those conditions than others. So, if Conte is to move on, that's a pretty big loss in my eyes, because he's, certainly a top manager in the world. Wouldn't maybe not necessarily put him like sort of top 5 managers in the world at this point, but on his day, he's just as good as anyone.
That point leads perfectly to something else I want to talk about. Jurgen Klopp had his 1,000th game as manager. Obviously, at Mainz, Dortmund, and now Liverpool. So 1,000, he'll raise the bat. Well, that's it's not really raising the bat. It's about 10 raising the bats, but whatever. Where for you does he rank in your? So we're not going to go all time. We're going to say probably the last 25 years. Where does he rank in your top 5 of all of the last 25 years, and where so if he does?
It's a hard question, because I've got to try and look at it in a non-biased fashion as well.
Take off those those red-coloured glasses.
Yeah, correct. Top 5 over 25 years. I mean, I'm to try and work my way from the top. You've got to put Ferguson at the top. I think. I think that's a non-negotiable. I think Pep Guardiola and Mourinho have to be in the conversation as well. It's so difficult to pinpoint those two. I'd probably give Pep the pip over over Mourinho. I think Carlo Ancelotti's got to be in that discussion too.
That's exactly they were the other four I had.
Yeah,
In no particular order. I wasn't even going as far as splitting them. But yeah, for me, it's quite a well-rounded 5 if you put Klopp in there.
It is, but if you compare Klopp compared to those 5 managers, especially over the last 25 years, he has to be 5th. If you're basing it purely sort of off of accolades and stuff like that, because 1 Premier League, 1 Champions League, an FA Cup, and a League Cup for Liverpool, 4 trophies in 7 years. I mean, we'll certainly take that, but like other outsiders can look at that and go, that's not that good, really.
4 trophies.
Conte's won 2 league trophies in that time. 1 at Chelsea, 1 at Inter, and I believe they might. I think they might have won the double that year as well. I can't exactly remember. Don't follow it all that much. Zidane's won countless amount of trophies. Luis Enrique, Barcelona won a number of them as well. So it's hard in terms of this. There's so many different. What's the word I'm looking for here? There's so many different sort of
metrics.
Yeah, exactly. That can determine a top manager and stuff like that. I personally, accolades is obviously a huge part because that's what you do. You manage to win trophies, but it being done, the manner of which it gets done as well, I think is important. And I think that's something that some clubs, some fans of clubs don't look at. And it's the one that sparks to mind in modern days anyway is Pep versus Klopp, especially in the Premier League. So yeah, like I'll put him in there, but he's in there at the bottom for me, especially against those other 4 that I mentioned. Because I think I've pretty much explained everything.
Yeah. So Alex Ferguson, he's number 1. He's at the top of the perch. I don't see anyone knocking him off for a long time. Pep could keep winning titles. It's probably not going to do much for me because what Sir Alex did with that team, and United weren't the force that they are now, or that they have sort of been over the last 20 years until he stepped in. It's all about the metric for which way you want to judge it. Obviously, if you talk about building a team and winning trophies, Klopp's probably higher up that list for me. Mourinho, I mean, he won the Champions League with Porto.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is a pretty wild...
And with Inter Milan as well.
Yeah, exactly. So those 2 really do know how to get it done with lesser quality teams, I'd say. Still quality teams, but that on paper, they're not the best in the world. Carlo Ancelotti, I think he's done it everywhere and continues to do it now with Madrid. So he's probably second for me.
Okay.
Pep, it's hard. Pep's obviously a great manager and he's done it. I mean, he walked into Bayern with Jupp Heynckes had that team rolling and Pep just continued doing that. Pellegrini was winning with City, Mancini, Pellegrini, all of that. And then Guardiola comes in. Yeah, they're rolling, but they were already rolling. He probably took them to new heights, which is great. But obviously his work at Barcelona was a huge feature, and that's how he sort of became a household name. All great managers, but obviously it's the metric that you view it by. And I mean, what Klopp did at Dortmund and then Liverpool. I mean, I can't really remember what Klopp early days at Dortmund was like, but they were never the force against Bayern Munich that they were when he left. So he clearly transformed that team as he did an awful Liverpool. You can remember that the Rodgers Liverpool was all guns blazing, and I mean it was 3-3 every game. It was mayhem. He brought some sort of order, to that team. Which, I mean, the heavy metal football, it's not exactly order, but it's winning football. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, it's a hard one, but I think for me that it's a pretty decent five, and they all have their own merits and shouts to be somewhere in the top.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be most people's top five. You know, that some people may swap out. If anyone they're going to swap out, it'd be Jurgen Klopp. But I think most people would agree. Definitely those first four deserve to be in there. Another I'm going to throw out just quickly. I mean, not nowhere near in contention for top five managers over the last 25 years. That's not the discussion I'm having. But if Arsenal win the league this year, that where does that rank in terms of greatest achievements in terms of winning the league? Because he was not expected to. Well, I don't know what his expectations were, but many people's expectations were that they wouldn't even finish top four this year. Here they are, halfway point, top of the table, 5 points clear, and they're right in the discussion to win the league. So if they take it out, like this, it's got to be up there in terms of one of the best achievements.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, casting aside expectations and just blowing them out of the water, it's right up there. Yeah, I mean, you go back to obviously Leicester. That was just a flash in the pan of 5,000 to 1. Just absolutely, that was a fluke. There's no
top. That can't be beaten.
Oh, and it will never be beaten. I mean, they were odds on for relegation, really, 5,000 to 1 to win the league.
Yeah.
Surprised they were offering those kind of odds. You generally just sort of cast like that. You're on the shit tip. But yeah, it's got to be somewhere around. Obviously not there, but it's not far away. Arsenal were very much a work in progress at the start of the year. Arteta was this his third or fourth season? He's been there a little while.
I think this is his third.
Yeah, fourth might be a bit too much.
Yeah.
So third. So I mean, Klopp didn't win anything, I think, till his fourth. So if Arteta was to do it now, and that Arsenal team has been pretty bang average for a little while, so to do it in the manner that he has, and with the personnel, I mean, hasn't been heavy investment. There's been investment in that team. I would hardly say it's heavy. It'd be a huge achievement. There's been a lot of, I mean, I think we spoke about it a little while ago. The players that he's brought in and transformed, like Xhaka was on the scrap heap. For me, Odegaard, he's got to be one of the best players in the league. Looking at this season, he's got to be right up there in terms of player of the year votes.
I agree.
He's absolutely bossed that midfield there. Thomas Partey has been good. It's been sort of just consistent improvement all across that team. The defense is solid. The banging in goals. Saka's goal on the weekend was amazing. He's just getting a lot out of those young guys too. So it's sustainable, I think, as well. There's definitely more to come from this team.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've already seen a ton of growth. Like there's the demographic of this team. I think it is quite a youngish team. When you put average ages sort of up on a board, they're right near the top in terms of having sort of the best demographic there. So he's putting together a great team, and it has to be looked at as one of the best in recent history.
So with the red glasses off, does it triumph Klopp and him winning the Premier League?
See, no, I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's so tough. That Liverpool team was pretty average. Some of the players in that team, there were some bang average footballers in there. Yeah. Oh god, it's neck and neck for me. I'd have to sit down and break it a little bit further. It's a great effort. Look, probably against expectations, yes, he probably deserves to be there. It's definitely more out of the blue than Liverpool was. They were priming to be contenders.
Yeah.
They were there or thereabouts, and everyone had them in their top four or contending. It was only for City's greatness and City's consistent greatness that they've probably been denied more league titles, which has been sort of a hallmark of this season, where City have been dropping more points than usual. Arsenal take advantage and away they go, but they're on pace for 100 points. It's still a great season from them. So, look, I'll put Arteta there based on it's been a drastic improvement and a great improvement.
Yeah, I would have to tip my hat to Arteta in this conversation as well, and purely down to the fact that, like you said before, Liverpool were building and priming to that point. The season prior, they won the Champions League and lost the league by 1 point. I think that was the 99 to 98 point season. So, like you said, without that, you've already got yourself a league title there. So, to follow on from that, Champions League winning season and finishing so close to winning it, it was almost expectation at that point, which again goes back to what you said about exceeding expectation. No one would have had them for the league title this year, but maybe some Arsenal fans potentially. I don't know. So yeah, it for me it's better than Liverpool's league winning season, even though they won it at a canter. That take nothing away from Liverpool there, but it's purely down to the fact that they've done it. He's done it basically with the same squad that he had last year, really. But he's just sort of obviously improved on that massively. So I can see him go on the distance. It'll be tight right to the end. Having beaten United at the weekend, which is so far the only team that's beaten them. We spoke about it last week, and I said if they can get through the City games without dropping points, I think they'll win it. If you go off of the basis of who they've beaten sort of already this season, there's one off their list that they lost to. So that's big. They haven't got to worry about United anymore, who were starting to pick up some serious momentum. So yeah, being 5 points clear at this point, you would normally say nothing's over. And we're not saying anything's over here, but the way that City sort of have been at times this year and the way that Arsenal have been at times this year, I can see the gap getting bigger before I can see it getting smaller, at least anyway. And I still stand that those two City games will obviously be absolutely crucial. We could be sitting here in, I think they play each other twice within like 2 or 3 weeks. So we could be sitting here at this point, currently with a 5 point gap. We could be seeing City 1 point ahead. That's just how it goes, and that's just sort of how quickly things can change. But I'd like to see Arsenal win it for something different. They actually have a game in hand as well, which I didn't realize. I think that, although that game in hand is against City, so
yeah,
take that as you wish. But yeah, it's going to be a down to the wire battle.
Yeah, either way, I mean, they're sitting pretty. I mean, most teams that are sitting in this position right now do go on to win the league. This isn't the same. It's hard to say. It is the same City team, but they've shown more inconsistencies. I think they've obviously got Haaland, who's I think he's up to 25 goals now.
Yeah.
It's halfway through the season, so he's basically on pace for just shy of 50, which is just insane. He will hit 40 this season. I don't know how he doesn't do it. He's going to shatter. He's going to shatter the record. That's a given. I think he only needs 9 more to equal it. I think 34 is the record.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah.
Set by Salah, I think. So yeah, it's going to go down to the wire. But I mean, if Arsenal were to win their game in hand, it's 8 points. It's a big lead, and even if City did win both of those games, they're still 2 points ahead, factoring in an Arsenal probable win. So, yeah, and they've shown that they really don't look like dropping many points against anyone else. So they've beaten, like you said, they've beaten United, the one team that they've lost to so far. They've gotten the chocolates against them on the way back around. So, I mean, they look good.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Thanks for listening. We'll catch us all next week. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like if you enjoyed the content, and we'll catch us all next week. Cheers.